Committee of September 22nd, 2011. Will the minute taker please call the roll?
Alderman R. Wesley.
Here.
Alderman Shockey.
Here.
Alderman Coles.
Here.
Alderman Sizmarsky. Alderman Eugene Wesley.
Here.
Alderman Winger.
Here.
Alderman Lazara.
Here.
Alderman Woods.
Here.
Before I go into the agenda, I am going to ask Mayor Police to give an announcement. I believe he has something to speak about.
Two quick announcements. This Saturday night from 5 to 8 p.m., the VFW is hosting a fried chicken dinner. All proceeds will go to America's Vet Dogs. So it's from 5 to 8 p.m., $8 per plate. It includes half chicken, mashed potatoes, corn roll, and dessert. So if you're able to attend, please attend. And one other thing is O'Hare Noise Commission, from what we understand, is Wooddale has only reported, has called in 6 times. We have 6 calls in. Park Ridge had, I believe, 1,000. If we need to fight to the airport and change the direction of those planes, Wooddale residents need to call in. The number is 800-435-9569. So when you hear a plane, call in and place your complaint. This will also be coming out in the newsletter. Thank you.
Thank you. And then along those lines, I know that Alderman Shockey and I have put that phone number in our Ward 3 newsletter, trying to get it out to the residents of Ward 3 and also at our Ward update sessions. So we continue to try and urge citizens to call that number. And anytime we can put that number in our citizens' hands, I think it's really great. Alderman Roy Wesley?
Is that on a Access Channel 2, Channel 6? It will be. It will be. Okay.
It can't be. Mr. Murmas, if it's not on there, can we put it on there? Okay, thank you. Okay, then with that being said, I make a motion to approve minutes dated September 8, 2011. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Anything on the question? All in favor?
Aye.
One opposed, motion carries. Next item is report and recommendation, the final reduction of the existing letter of credit and establishment of the 2-year public improvements maintenance bond for Villa Cara subdivision. And there was much discussion on this at our last committee meeting, and we did agree to table it and then also look for legal input. And we are required legally to reduce the letter of credit. Now, that being said, we also did send a letter to the Villa Cara homeowners saying that they do need to form a homeowners association, I believe by the end of October. And with that being said, I'm going to ask Mr. Forrest to take us through this in more detail.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, West Suburban Bank is again requesting that the city lower their letter of credit to the required maintenance bond amount, which will be in effect for 2 years. They do not feel the letter of credit reduction should be tied to formulation of the homeowners association. As you mentioned, there has been a second letter sent to the homeowners association. The first one did remind them that they're obliged to create the homeowners association. We did not get a timely response on that, so the city attorney's office and our department worked and got a second letter together that uses much stronger language. The homeowners in there are required to form the homeowners association. That's required per the subdivision agreement and also the recorded declaration of covenants. So we have given them till October 31st to form the homeowners association. At that point, we could decide if we wanted to take legal action against them to form that. I hope that it doesn't get to that. Our approach is going to be, if for any reason the city would have to spend any funds maintaining the maintenance pond, which is that's the big ticket item that is in that subdivision. That pond is specific to that subdivision and it's not a regional pond. So in this letter, they were again reminded that the city, because of that fact, the city has no desire or obligation to take over that pond, and it is the obligation of the homeowners association. that's really the big ticket item that they have to take care of, that and the entrance structure. So I'm kind of confused why there hasn't been a little more positive activity on their part to get this formed. But regardless, if for any reason the city would have to spend any money in there at this point, our recourse would then be to lien all 14 properties in there. And I don't think those homeowners would want to have a cloud on their title with a lien from the city. So again, the bank has completed all the public improvements. They've been inspected, approved. The as-built drawings have been reviewed and approved. And they are requesting that they be allowed to go to their 2-year maintenance bond of $40,893, which is 10% of the original letter of credit. Now, I did have one thought. If our main concern is having monies available to cut that pond, they are required to post this maintenance agreement and have that be in effect for 2 years. That's the longest we can hold their feet to the fire to, maintain the public improvements that they have installed. I thought if it would make the council feel better, what we could do is maybe add $2,000 to that amount that they're talking about, which would give the city more than enough money. If we had to, for any reason, cut the grass in that pond for 2 years, we would at least have the monies available. What we could do is, once the homeowners association is formed and they take responsibility for that, if we wanted to, again, give West Suburban a show of good faith, we could then just reduce that $2,000 at some point in the future, and then just go to their $40,893 that they're required to post for the 2-year maintenance period.
Okay, thank you. Anything on the question, or anything to question Alderman Roy Wesley?
So John, you're saying $2,000 for 2 years?
That's an estimate. I know what the city was billed for Ethan Woods to have the landscaper come in and cut the detention pond and cut all the parkways. And in Velicar, we're talking about just cutting a much smaller detention pond. I would estimate that we probably need cutting 4, maybe 5 times during the course of a season.
I think your estimate's low. But what happens after 2 years if they don't form an association? I mean, Ethan Wood's been going on for...
Well, I think that what we would do would be institute legal action against them, since there are documents recorded with DuPage County, recorded against the properties that specifies that a homeowners association is to be formed. I think it would be pretty easy to convince a judge that for whatever reason the homeowners are resisting forming this homeowners association, and they could be forced to do it. The other thing is any monies that the city would expend maintaining the common areas that would be the responsibility of the homeowners association, our first move would be to just place a lien on everybody's property that's in the subdivision.
I have a problem of putting liens on residents since it's not their fault in any which way. And if that's the case, I'd like to see that extended for 5 years, of not 2 years, but 5 years. Because with the economy how it is, we don't know where those homes are going to go. And of course, if they go into, some go in foreclosures, then does the lien still exist?
Actually, legally, though, it's 2 years, correct, that we're allowed to
Only two?
hold out?
Yeah, what we're talking about is we'll be reducing their letter of credit to the 2-year maintenance bond for the public improvements. That's all we can
That's the max?
hold it, correct.
Any other
The
questions?
question, I had the question, what happens if one of those houses go into foreclosure? Is a lien, does a lien exist for the property?
I would have to say that'd probably be a question for the city attorney.
Okay.
Alderman Artwoods?
Can we start, or at least put the pressure on, we don't have to take them to court right away, but if we stay on and make it a goal to get them to form that within the 2 years, so we don't have to hold another $50,000, argue with the bank, and do all that and determine, whether it costs $100, $200, or $500 to cut that pond. And the second part of my question is, are there any other issues with the bankruptcy with the trustee? I mean, we're taking title to land and stuff already. The detention pond, I don't know how that was sectioned out. Are there going to be issues with them even being able to form the association with the bankruptcy going on?
In my discussions with both Pat Bond and Mary Dixon, neither one have indicated that there should be any problems with them forming the homeowners association. The only thing the city will be taking title to are the street right-of-ways and the parkways and any public improvements that are located within those right-of-ways. We will not be taking title to the pond or the drainage swales that are dedicated easements on the individual properties. Those will remain with the property owners. As far as any term period, again, the second letter that went out to the homeowners that went out this week, we've given them a deadline of October 31st of this year to start moving towards forming the homeowners association. And again, it would probably be a question for the city attorney's office, but if we have absolutely no response and no movement at that point, I would think we should be able to go forward and, legally require that they form the homeowners association, because again, there are recorded subdivision documents specifically calling for the formation of the homeowners association. The only reason it wasn't done was because the developer shirked his responsibilities. How's that?
That's good enough. Did he already do the preliminary work? Is there a master homeowner association, the paperwork or anything set up? Typically, at least it's in the process.
Not that I'm aware of. In talking to some of the homeowners, they've indicated that the developer was collecting the homeowners association dues from them, but decided to take that with him when he left.
Okay. Well, I think that, we could reduce the bond to the bank, but I think we need to keep the pressure on so that we can try to get the thing done in the 2 years.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Alderman Eugene Wesley?
I have a question. There was a concern about a special service area that we put in place in some of these areas. I never got the response back. Is that a special service area that we put in place?
Not on that subdivision. This subdivision was originally started when our previous city attorney was still in the employ of the city. And our current city's attorneys didn't come into the picture till at the end of that whole process when everything had pretty much been done.
So there is not a special.
Not on Villacara, no.
So we couldn't do that.
Correct.
But I would like, Madam Chairman, I would like a copy of which ones are in that cluster special service area for we know in case something like this comes up.
Can you say that a different way? That are you looking for, of those properties, what might be near a special service area, or?
No, the development that we approved before that they put in a special service area, know that in case this comes back, because I guarantee you another one's coming back to this dais for something like this. And we need to know if those are in the special service area. Then we don't have to have this debate. We know we got our money.
Mr. Forrest?
Yeah, just to prep you on this, I would anticipate we'll probably be having this discussion about another subdivision that's in the process right now as well. So
So, again,
we're laying some groundwork here.
But after the after a certain point, we put in the requirement to do an SSA, is that correct?
It's my understanding from talking with the city's attorney's office, in the more recent subdivisions that have been done, there has been a silent special services area put into place. So, as Alderman Wesley said, we won't be having this type of discussion in the future.
Okay, thank you. Anything else on the question? I'm going to make a motion to approve the reduction letter of credit to $40,893 for the Villa Cara subdivision, and subject to attorney review and going to city council. Is there a second?
Second.
Anything on the question?
One
Alderman
first.
Eugene Wesley?
What will that leave us back in, will this close this one out, or do we still have retaining money on this?
Well, we'll have this $40,893 will be a standing letter of credit for a 2-year period in case there are any issues with the public improvements that have been installed. If they malfunction or break,
Okay,
the funds to fix that will come out of this.
thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item is the report and recommendation for the Thorndale Corridor overlay, and this was reviewed by the Community Development Committee, and this is pertaining to the hard work done and cost to do the Thorndale study, and now it's a matter of overlaying that zoning area near Thorndale Corridor, and this did pass unanimously at the Community Development Committee. And with that being said, Mr. Clicker, did you wish to add anything? I'm sure you do. You're going to kind of take us through each overall section, correct?
A brief
Okay.
overview of the Thorndale Corridor Overlay District. The intent of the Thorndale Corridor Corporate Overlay District is to implement the Thorndale Corridor Master Plan that was adopted by the City Council in 2009. As you know, with our land use plan, we got ahead of the curve. We got ahead of the development cycle. We got ahead of the road cycle, actually. That corridor plan has influenced the design of the roadway. It has been utilized by the Illinois Department of Transportation in their modeling for economic forecasts. And we wanted to stay ahead of the curve by getting our zoning in place so that we have a proactive environment when we are approached with development opportunities along this corridor, rather than reacting to the development requests. So what we have here is, based on the Thorndale Corridor Master Plan, we've created this overlay district. Now, the important things to realize about this, or to see in this, is that this is a form-based code. This is a different type of zoning than traditional zoning. Traditional zoning prescribes setbacks for a lot, height for the lot, floor area ratio for a lot. A form-based code basically sets a wireframe for a block and allows the property owners to determine how they're going to meet that wireframe, and setbacks on individual properties aren't as important as the overall wireframe. It emphasizes building form, it emphasizes a public realm, it emphasizes high-quality site and building design standards. So in this overlay district, there are, if you will, design criteria that have to be met with all the types of buildings that we envision in this area. It also provides for pedestrian and transit-oriented development, to have a mix of uses, to allow for an architectural diversity, and offer additional business and employment opportunities within Wooddale. We could have taken many approaches with this type of zoning as to how it would be enacted. We chose to enact it with triggers, which we believe are the most fair and equitable way to enact this zoning, and that this zoning will not be applicable to any property until they choose to redevelop. As you see in if you turn to page 6, let's see if I can put that up here. Thank you, in the control room. Actually, one more page if you could, please. Oops, who did that? Anyways, this district has triggers that go into effect on it. And the very first trigger that we have established in this is that the TCC district, as it will be called, or the Thorndale Corridor Corporate District, is established as an overlay zoning district. The overlay district standards will go into effect after bids are solicited for the construction of the Elgin O'Hare Western Bypass, a project which will be completed by either the Illinois Department of Transportation, the Illinois Tollway, or a private entity in a public-private partnership, and when specific criteria are met. The criteria is that a building would have to be redeveloped or being altered in a way that it could not meet its current zoning. An alteration, if they could maintain their existing I-1 footprint with requesting no zoning variations, they would be allowed to continue to add on to that building. If they are going to redevelop the site, meaning clearing it and starting over again, or expanding it to a point where it would need variations that they could not comply with the existing zoning, then the overlay district standards would apply. To do this, we have specified sub-areas that would be utilized for this development. There's the Corporate Main Street sub-area, which would be There we go. Which would be along the Thorndale Avenue corridor, the business park sub-area, and then the recreation complex sub-area. These are all aspects of the Thorndale Corridor Master Plan that we had developed over the years. And we worked very closely with the property owners and affected properties, or in the interests, and they're the business interests in this district, to make sure that it would be applicable to them. That's why the triggers were established in the manner that they were. I don't want to go through all the specific setbacks and everything of the zoning in there, but again, what this has done is, as I mentioned, it focuses on blocks rather than individual properties. So we've divided the overlay district into 11 blocks that prescribe a development envelope for the future redevelopment of this area. Each block then has a typology, if you will, of what should be allowed in there, prescribing heights and some setbacks, but the setbacks are mainly from the roadways and buffer zones that need to be created, and how the individual property owners and developers come up with that solution is it allows them greater freedom. So in essence, what we believe we've done with this is we've created an environment that will allow the redevelopment to happen. It will set the rule book for the developers to come in and say, this is what the city desires, rather than them coming to us and saying, this is what we think would be good here. It allows us to go out and actively recruit those types of developments. And it provides, again, allows us to stay ahead of the curve, be proactive rather than reactive to the development cycle. Some other things that we have done in this is we want to be proactive. We want to again, be proactive rather than reactive. And what we want the buildings, and one thing that we're going to require up here is that a transportation management association be established amongst all the buildings that are developed. And that they will look at transportation aspects up there to not only push for better public transportation up there, but utilize them for their businesses and for their residents and for their employees. Encouraging them and actually giving them some bonuses and parking regulations for utilizing public transportation, van pools, car pools, the zip car services, things along that nature. We want them to work together as a group up there to come up with traffic solutions so that this, not only will this be a world-class development, but it won't adversely impact our existing transportation network.
Questions, comments? Alderman Roy Wesley?
Russ, what's your intent on how you're going to draw businesses into this area?
We will continue to market our Thorndale Corridor Plan. We will continue to go out to trade shows, associations, and just talk to developers in general about this plan and work with them. We will also continue to work with the council to get the proper mechanisms in place so that development can be facilitated in the most appropriate manner.
Okay. I don't know if anyone noticed that Addison got Panera Breads over there. And I know that's a hot corner over there, but it just seems kind of odd that these towns are still getting some businesses in for tax sales and stuff like that, and we're not clicking here. We're missing something.
I think we're getting businesses in. In the industrial park, some that are going to be generating taxes, and we're working through it. Mr. Forrest?
Yeah, I certainly can't comment on why Addison, got the Panera Bread, but I think what we're talking about here tonight. Did I? Is that? I think what's important that we discuss tonight is this overlay district. Just kind of the Reader's Digest version is the City Council approved the Thorndale Corridor Plan. That's how our development is going to look once the Elgin O'Hare Expressway is completed. And, we're hoping, as we've talked about in the past, will be the Rosemont to the west side of the airport in the next 15 to 20 years. What this overlay district has done is The zoning ordinance that's in place now, which is also known as the Unified Development Ordinance, has certain standards for the development in the industrial park. To develop this Thorndale corridor, rather than have property owners come in and constantly be asking for variations and how are we going to do this, we've approved the master plan. This overlay district puts the standards, it's more specific on what types of buildings they have to build. It allows greater height, it allows greater densities, it allows different parking standards, so it will keep these developers from having to come in for variations. As Ross said, we worked during the Community Development Commission meetings. A lot of these property owners attended, we worked with them, and that's why there have been some revisions in here as far as allowing existing buildings to stay as they are, or to even expand or enlarge as long as they can comply to the existing zoning ordinance. If they cannot and need to expand or redevelop their property in a way that they would need a zoning variation from the UDO, then this zoning overlay standards will kick in and they'll have to comply to it. Also, with the input from the Community Development Commission and the property owners, that's where we came up with some of the triggers. In other words, this ordinance will not even really be effective until the contracts, till they go out for bid for the construction contracts, because there was a lot of concern of the property owners. Well, what happens if the expressway never happens? And, you know, what if it's another 20 years before it happens and we want to do something with our property or open a business? This won't even go into effect until IDOT publishes that they're ready to take bids for the construction. So it is, the effectiveness of this is tied to the Elgin O'Hare going ahead. So, and that's, I can certainly understand Alderman Roy Wesley's concerns about retail business. We'd all like some more, but that's not part of this right now.
Mayor, please.
I just want to make a quick comment. Last night, there was kind of a re-grand opening and a remodeling over at the hotel. And the owner of the hotel was there, and he was very excited about hearing about the Elgin O'Hare going through and whatnot. And he definitely wants to expand from what he has. And Mr. Clicker did make sure that there was one of the landowners there to meet with the gentleman. And I know they connected and were talking for a little while, but of course, nothing is going to happen until the tollway says they're going to start construction. That was.
Alderman Eugene Wesley.
John, back up here. So this overlay district won't go in effect until they put the shovel or go out for bid to build this road. So even if they don't start the road in Wooddale or by O'Hare and they start it out by Elgin, if it comes to Elgin O'Hare Expressway or wherever it comes to wherever they start, this goes in effect immediately after the contract is awarded for that road project? Am I following that right? Or are we leaving them leeway until they build the Wooddale portion of this roadway? I'm just a little confused on that comment you made.
Okay. This would be in effect when the construction bids are solicited for the construction of the roadway. We can further specify it so that it be for the section through Wooddale. We can definitely do that. However, again, this is an overlay. This in no way says that when that happens, this zoning is the zoning of the property. The only time that this zoning will take effect on any property owner in this district is when they choose to redevelop, or they're expanding to a point that they cannot meet within the current envelope of the zoning that's allowed.
I totally understand. May I do a follow-up on it?
Yeah.
I totally understand that, but if I'm going to sit here and pass this thing, which I'm in favor of it, I think it should go in effect as soon as they break ground on that road project, regardless of where it's at.
Okay.
Not waiting until it gets to Wooddale and then they do it, because I know what's going to happen. I can see it now. These developers or these buildings are going to sneak this in, because this ain't going in effect until Wooddale gets their road part. Oh, I'm going to sneak this in before this goes in. You know what? I would like that
Instead of just
stipulated
being-
that once the contract releases, start that road project, that this goes in effect immediately.
That is the way it's currently written. If, you
Well,
know,
I'm just saying, but then you were saying that maybe it might not go in effect.
Well, we could, depending on how the council's opinion on that, we could tighten it.
I'd rather have it go in effect as soon as contract awarded to start that project.
Mayor, please.
Going into effect right away. The problem is, got a lot of landowners over there. Got one that's expanding right now. We can't just say, they're putting a shovel in, you're done. I mean,
No, and again, that's the beauty of
Right.
the overlay, is that it doesn't take effect on the properties until the property owners choose to redevelop.
right. It's not automatic that they're finished.
Oh, he started already. He could go. But if a
No,
contract.
Actually, the
No.
development that we're talking about, that met all zoning requirements.
And it's permitted
So-
and it's done. It's,
But
they're going.
even if
Even
he,
with this overlay being
even
enacted,
if it
that would
was
still be
enacted, he
allowed.
would still be able to
Correct,
expand.
because that was done in compliance with all
even if there
zoning
was a shovel in
regulations.
the ground.
I'm going to make a motion to amend Chapter 17, which is the Unified Development Ordinance of the Municipal Code of the City of Wooddale, to establish the Thorndale Corridor Form-Based Zoning Overlay District, and that the properties within this district be rezoned to this new district. Is there a second?
Second.
Anything else on the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item is amending Chapter 4 of the Municipal Code regarding business licenses. And with that, Mr. Forrest?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This proposal was originally kind of brought forward by the Wooddale Police Department and the City Clerk's Office. They came to the Community Development Department because we've had some trouble in the past getting certain information from all the businesses and all the occupancies in the city. We've done some research, and for whatever reason, years ago, the city decided that if a business is required to be licensed by the state, in other words, a physician, dentist, chiropractor, hair salon, nail salon, real estate office, that the city would not require them to also get a Wooddale business license. Well, unfortunately, what that means is that many times we don't get emergency contact information, insurance information, that type of thing from those occupancies throughout the city, and that has been an issue, in recent times. So effectively, this is kind of an expansion and a clarification of our existing language contained in Section 4 of the Municipal Code, referencing business license requirements and who's supposed to have them. One thing that I talked about with the city attorney's office today is in this model ordinance that's contained in your packet, one thing I would like to see added in there would be a bullet point that holds landlords responsible for notifying the city when they have vacant units in their building. So another issue that we've had is a landlord that might have a multi-tenant building. He might be moving tenants in and out of there that we're not aware of. They don't get their business license until at some point in time they're caught during an inspection, or at some point in time they could be in there for a year, go on their way, and in the meantime the city has been unable to get their business license fees for that business. So the city attorney's office, they were going to do a little research, but I would like to add a section in this model ordinance requiring that landlords notify the city when they have vacant spaces, and then also putting some responsibility on the landlord that when he gets a new tenant that's going to come into the space, the landlord notifies them that they are required to come to the city and get a business license. Let's see. So anyway, yeah, this would be the new proposed rewriting of this section in the municipal code, and if you have any questions.
Sure, thank you. Mayor, please.
John, I had some questions on this, and I called over here at City Hall and was told part of the problem was the police had to go into a building. We didn't know who it was. We had to break down the door. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe so.
That's part of the other thing is the fees. Now, some of these businesses right now don't require fees, like you said, hair salons, dentists. And I was looking in here for fees. There's nothing in here that says fees. Are we just gonna charge what we normally charge all the other businesses per square foot? Or is this gonna be like just a separate thing just so we can have these on file? I mean, if they weren't required to pay the full fees, how, we're gonna come in with the full fee now? I'm just curious.
Mr. Forrest?
Yes, paragraph 2 of section 4.201 says, upon the filing of an application and the payment of the required fee as hereinafter provided. So in other words, that will bump to the section, the fee structure for the business licenses. This is going to be a business license. Basically, what we're saying is that businesses that the city has previously exempted, we're removing that exemption, and we're requiring a business license for every commercial and every industrial occupancy throughout the city, whether you're licensed by the state or not. And then our regular business license fee will kick into place.
Mayor, please.
Is that legal? I mean, are they gonna start contesting it? You're making me get a business license when I'm not required to get a business license? Shouldn't this be called something else?
Well, it is a public safety issue for one thing. It's my understanding that this ordinance is virtually, very, very similar to one that Bensonville is currently using right now and some of the other surrounding municipalities.
Shouldn't this
So-
be more like an occupancy permit license or something?
I suppose we would call it that. Again, this proposed ordinance was written by the city attorney's office with some input from staff, so I have to rely on their expertise in protecting the city.
Alderman Woods?
To the mayor's comment, this is what most of the villages use. So my question is for a little clarification, though. A, all the businesses, no matter where they're licensed, are going to have to be licensed in the city of Wooddale. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, simple enough. The other part in the recommendations, it says a code amendment to Chapter 4 Municipal Code is made to require all commercial buildings to register. I don't see that in the recitals. Is that a separate issue or is that a non-issue now? Are we going to have a separate registration for buildings alone? In your memo, the recommendation. Or is,
There was some talk when this memo was prepared about requiring a registration fee for vacant buildings. I would rather, there's some other legislation that's pending right now in the Illinois Senate that if that's enacted, I think will kind of cover this. I think for our purposes here, I would rather have a landlord register his vacant building basically to just let us know it's vacant, get his emergency contact information. Not that concerned when he has a vacant building about collecting a fee from him. More concerned about, again, getting the emergency information and being sure that he's on board to notify us and notify a new tenant when they move in that they need to come in and get a business license.
could we not make that part of the initial, when the business sets up their business, they get their permits and the license, that part of that agreement is that whoever the landowner is to supply their emergency information too,
Sure.
as opposed to trying to create another system? I'm just looking to keep it simple. It's hard enough, I understand, for everybody to keep everything straight. And then maybe, to your other thing before, as part of the landlord's lease, maybe we print up a page, we would like to have part of their lease, that, you know, he informed that they have to come down and file for a license, so that covers his obligation as opposed to making him the babysitter for the tenant.
I
Just an
did,
idea.
yeah, late this afternoon, I did have a discussion with Scott Hidalgo from the city attorney's office that worked on this ordinance, basically about what kind of responsibilities we could, have a landlord assume, and he was going to do a little research into that and get back to me, which he didn't before the end of the day, but certainly before this comes to council, we'll have that information.
All right, thank you.
Alderman Eugene Wesley?
I thought we had a code in the building department that all buildings must have Knox boxes on for police and fire could get in them. Whatever happened there? I thought it was in our code.
I don't believe a Knox box is required, it's encouraged. In fact, It's funny, we were talking this afternoon with the fire district and with one of our inspectors about that, and the comment was, a Knox box is a lot cheaper than buying a new door.
But I thought when it came to us before that we required it to all businesses to put Knox boxes on.
I know it was talked about, I don't know if it was ever, I mean, it's something we could certainly add to our local code amendments, which will probably be coming to you next month. I'll double check it though, to be sure.
Madam Chairman, with all the changes that we're talking about tonight of Mr. Woods and all that, I really don't feel comfortable voting on this until we get the changes done and see the full document after the changes. So, I don't know if that's going to work out before the city council meeting, because obviously our attorney did not call our, John about it. So if they feel they can't do it, I would recommend that we table this back to committee until we get the full blown of all our discussions on this policy. So I would make a motion to table this, the next committee meeting.
Is there a second? Mr. Murmas?
Yeah, we can go ahead and table. I mean, the reason why this is being brought to the council's attention now is we've got business licenses coming up. There's going to be information distributed in the newsletter that goes to all the businesses. And the reason that we're bringing this now is to be proactive, so we have these new policies in place so we can correct some of these public safety issues. We do have a week, next week, where there's no committee meeting. We could schedule a committee meeting just for this, or maybe throw some other items on, or not have a meeting and just give us an extra week to work out these kinks before the first Thursday in October. But that's up to you. Yeah, so we do have a Thursday to play with, some time to either have a meeting or get more information before the next council meeting.
Before I call the roll on the table, I'd like to hear, and I will do that, but my comment to the committee is that let's air all of our concerns and input now so we're not behind. Let's try and get it all worked out now, so then the final product can come to us, and then we can vote on it at council. So I will call the roll, but I would encourage us to continue the discussion. So there was a motion and a second to table to committee. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I'm opposed. So I have two oppositions. Then this is tabled to committee.
So are we going to have a special meeting next week to discuss this item, or are we going to wait till next year to enact these policies?
I'm not coming next week.
So we're waiting until next year?
I don't see why we have to wait to say what we want this to look like. I'd like to have the discussion now and get it done. Mayor, please?
Couldn't we have tabled this to the October 6th council meeting? Since we had 2 weeks?
Well, that's what I had suggested.
Alderman Roy Wesley?
Jeff, you said the next year?
Yeah.
Well, the reason is if we table this to the next committee, regular committee, that'll already be second week of October. Then you're looking at the third council meeting in October. All the deadlines have passed to get this notification out to the businesses. That's why we want to do this now.
So why is this coming to us so late as,
Well, it's really not coming to you late. I mean, this is it's not late.
well, it could have came to us, when were business licenses due?
Well, I mean, there's a plethora of things going on in the city. This is not the only thing we work on.
I
So, I mean, it's
understand that,
not.
but again, here we do with business license about putting information out, and we wait kind of to last minute again.
Mm-hmm. Well,
I mean,
we've got 3 weeks. I mean, I don't
you
call
know,
that last
I
minute.
understand that,
Okay.
but it was last year.
Okay. Alderman,
It's just
Mayor, please.
things getting done.
The reason I believe this is really coming up is because of the incident with the police department, and that's why it popped up. Otherwise, it might not even come on the radar. Is that correct?
Chief Festa.
We've had a couple of incidents. I know one was emergencies inside industrial buildings where there was like freezing pipes and stuff like that. Other issues are a hair salon that was selling fake licenses, driver's licenses. And as opposed to a business that was scamming someone in Georgetown and we were going to go after their business license, we couldn't do a thing about the hair salon in town, which we thought was not just a public safety issue with minors or illegals getting driver's licenses. There was nothing we could do short of the state revoking their license, which they didn't do, other than, prosecuting them criminally, but they're still allowed to be open in town, and so that's part of the reason that we look to have a change to this.
Alderman Woods?
Could we just pass the basic part of this, which is to make sure that all the businesses are licensed regardless of whether they're licensed by the state or a county, and worry about the other issues, the landlord and the Knox box and all that? So that would give you the teeth that everybody needs to get a license, which would solve the majority of the issues that the chief was talking about. Is that an option, both for you guys and for the council, I guess?
We could do that, or if I understand correctly, you can discuss this at the council meeting, and by that time, I can check on the Knox box requirements. If we want to insert that, we can do that. If we want, and we want to add some information about the landlords, we could do that. You'd have that information in the packet prior to the council meeting on October 6th. And at that point, you could decide how you want to proceed with it.
To continue the discussion, I'm going to look for the prevailing side to make a motion to bring back the discussion to committee. And is there a motion on the prevailing side to table this discussion?
I'll make that motion.
And is there a second?
Second.
And then all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone else in favor to have the discussion, so we can clean this up or at least get input out? Any opposed?
False.
I have 3 and 3. Will the minute taker please call the roll? And the motion is to have the discussion, or is to bring the discussion back to this committee to discuss the business license proposal.
Alderman Roy Wesley.
Opposed.
Alderman Shockey.
If it's legal, yes.
Alderman Coles.
Opposed.
Alderman Sizmarsky.
Opposed.
Alderman Eugene Wesley.
Opposed.
Alderman Winger.
Yes.
Alderman Lazara.
Yes.
Alderman Woods.
Yes.
So it's a tie. So it fails, there's no recommendation.
The mayor can vote on it,
No, I don't think so, not a committee.
not on committee. Okay.
Okay. I believe it can go to council with no recommendation though, correct? I know it failed the table.
I don't
So
think
it is tabled, right, yeah,
Well, I thought it got tabled to the next committee,
right. it
which
did.
is after the next council
Yes.
meeting.
Yes.
Okay.
Next item is a little technical difficulty here. Items for future consideration here. Items to be considered at future meetings. Obviously, the business license, municipal code, chapter 4. And then next item is City of Wooddale floodplain buyout policy in October. Next item is amendments to local building code, October, and commuter station coffee options, November. Anything else, items for future meetings? Alderman Roy Wesley?
I did read the memo about Ethan Woods that I received, but I still would like to talk about that very, very soon, because here we go again. The weather's gonna get lousy, and now we got a permit, and possibly a permit in there, and we got a street that's not gonna be done again.
So what part do you want to have discussion on?
Ethan Woods,
And what about it?
about pulling the letter of credit to get the roads done, the lights, sidewalks, whatever is supposed to be done there.
I'm not sure if we have to do this at committee. Is this something, Mr. Forrest, you can handle administratively?
I believe we can start the wheels going. I think as I mentioned about 2 weeks ago, we did meet with the city attorney, and I met with the one developer who's still in business and cooperating with the city, and the bank that's holding the letter of credit. I had advised them the city was going to be coming after the letter of credit. They called, they wanted to sit down together and talk about if, giving us a timetable. I did talk to the developer yesterday. He's not been able to get together with the bank. I expected this week they were going to be submitting a letter to me with timetables when they were going to finish all the improvements that Alderman Wesley was talking about. We don't have that. So yeah, I'm prepared to work with the city attorney's office and go forward with the letter of credit if that's what you want to do.
Okay, well, I will call on Alderman Roy Wesley, but I don't believe it's a committee item. That might be a mayor's report or some kind of discussion at a council meeting. Alderman Roy Wesley?
I just don't want this to continue. We're getting into the winter again, and that road's not going to be done. I mean, plant's closed 1st of November, and I don't think we're going to get it done. And then what's going to happen is they're going to pour this thing and try to do it in mid-November, and we're going to get a road that's going to go bounce, and it's going to look lousy, and we're going to end up eating it. I just don't want this to continue. It's been going on long enough.
Mr.
Yeah,
Farr?
that was my intention when I notified the bank we were coming after the letter of credit. Well, that got their attention, but apparently not enough where they got the timetable to me this week like they had indicated they were going to. So, yeah, I have no problem with moving forward to take what we need from the letter of credit to finish it.
Any other items for future meetings? I make a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I'd like to call the September 22nd meeting of the Finance and Administration Committee. Would the minute taker please show the same alderman present and the mayor? First item is approval of the minutes of September 8th. I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is a report and recommendation on the year 2011 budget amendments. And I'll let Mr. Wilson take care of that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Real quick, not to correct you or anything, but Alderman Sizmarsky was not there at the roll call for community development, so we need to make sure he's added to the listing now, so. So yes, we do have are we okay?
I didn't hear what you said, I'm sorry.
Just Alderman Sizmarsky came in after the roll call for the prior committee, so we just needed to make sure he was added to the listing of being present
Oh,
at this
yes,
committee.
Yes. Okay.
So we do have the audit is concluded. We're wrapping up some odds and ends, writing the management discussion and analysis letter, other things to finish up the budget. One of the things that we do every year, somewhat unfortunately, is we do have to go through and do a budget amendment if any funds go over budget for that particular fiscal year. This year, we did have 6 funds for various reasons that went over budget. It's not all bad news, though. Of the 6, 5 had an increase in fund balance or net assets. The 6th of those, even though the fund balance declined, the actual usable cash increased. Just a couple quick definitions. How to calculate a fund balance or net assets. It's the assets of the fund minus the liabilities. And the year over change is the revenues collected for a year minus the expenses for that year. So if the fund balance or net assets increase, we collected more in revenue than we spent. If the fund balance decreases, then we spent more than we brought in. The first one is the general fund. As you can see, it was over budget by just under $77,000. The good news is, though, the fund balance increased by almost $600,000. So that means that we took in $677,000 roughly more than we spent in the general fund. Just a couple other quick references to the general fund. When we prepared the fiscal 12 budget, we were projecting a $411,000 fund balance increase. And then when I sent a memo preliminarily closing out the fiscal year on June 6th, I had predicted close to $600,000 in a fund balance increase, which is exactly where we wound up. The two line items that kind of stuck out to me the most when going through the general fund budget was general legal and engineering services. Legal is over for various reasons. We did have election to ballot items, so we did have to have legal department work on those. We don't have an election every year, so that'll help. We did have to negotiate 2 manager contracts this fiscal year. Those clip off at about $10,000 apiece, it looked like in looking through the legal bills. There's costs associated with ongoing litigation of various sorts. Unfortunately, the bottom two aren't that exciting. We had the forced annexation on 83 and Oak Meadows that was a little north of $10,000 that didn't go anywhere, and we had the cell tower on Potter that was about $8,000 that ultimately didn't go anywhere. So those were kind of the big non-standard items in the legal budget this year that cost us quite a bit of money. And then engineering, as you all know, we did away with the in-house staff and brought in Baxter and Woodman, and this was just to square up their costs relative to the in-house staff. And I did see a hand over there, so.
Alderman Wesley.
Why would the cell tower cost us money?
Well, unfortunately, legal negotiated the terms of the contract before the variance was granted, and the variance was denied at the committee level. And so we had spent money to negotiate a contract for something that never went anywhere.
So why did we do that?
Yes.
That was per council recommendation to do that. Staff recommended against that.
Okay.
Alderman Eugene Wesley.
Wait a minute. We went ahead and told them to go ahead and negotiate a contract for a cell tower before this council did. I'd like to know what day that was. I don't remember that conversation.
It was actually multiple times. Staff had recommended that we treat it as 2 separate issues, and council was fixated on treating it as one issue and negotiating terms of the variance and negotiating contract terms, getting ahead of themselves before we figured out if we were even theoretically wanted to have a variance. And this was on multiple occasions that we recommended to not do that.
We did it.
I don't remember that.
Roy Wesley.
If that's the case, how do we make a policy so we don't do that again? I mean, we need to put the cost onto them, not to us. If they want to put a cell tower up, they should pay for it all. And there shouldn't be no discussion at the city council. Let's just make a policy and throw it on them.
Anybody commenting on that? Alderman Woods.
I'm leaving the cell tower. I'm back to 2 manager contracts at $10,000 apiece. Costs us $10,000 to put a manager contract together?
That's kind of the rough costs. I didn't specifically add up every single line, but in looking at the kind of the hours that it took, the back and forth between our legal team and the manager's legal team, that's what it was kind of roughing in at about. So I mean, if you want to say between 8 and 10, yeah. Unfortunately, those are pretty high if they get pretty lengthy, so.
Thank you.
You can go ahead, I think. Next item.
Okay. So what we're proposing to cover the $77,000 over budget is to increase the legal line item by 35,000 and the engineering line item by 44,000 for a total of 79,000, which is a little bit more than what we need to cover that, but it will bring us in compliance with our budget for the year.
We need a motion on each one of these items?
Typically, it's all presented in one ordinance at the council level, so
Okay.
if it's agreeable, we can just do it at the end.
Alderman Roy Wesley.
Brad, how much was budget for the engineer? Were you talking Baxman Woodman, or are you talking all of them?
Correct. Unfortunately, since the change was made mid-year, the budget was constructed for the two in-house engineers, but since they left and Baxter Woodman came in, we didn't readily have a solid number for them. There was a lot of cleanup work they had to do and kind of get acclimated with the city, so.
Go ahead.
So what is that number? How much is it for how much was budget for engineering?
You talking in last year's the budget that we're discussing here?
Yeah, where you're taking the funds from?
Okay, sure. Give me 1 second.
This is like what we talked about last week.
We actually did have a solid number for Baxter and Woodman, so I just wanted to make sure that we're talking about the right thing again. The budget for engineering for fiscal 2011 was $205,930, and it came in right around $250,000. So the 250 minus the 206 gets us to the $44,000.
What was it?